and thank one in particular for affording us this luxurious conference room. Welcome. As many of you know, I delivered my sectoral presentation for 2015 yesterday afternoon in Parliament under the theme Enabling Jamaica's Sustainable Future. During my presentation, I covered a number of important issues for which I'm sure that you require additional information or perhaps clarification. Before I take questions, I want to briefly summarize some of what I presented yesterday. I mentioned that we are building a climate resilient country through the formation of a network of 27 climate change focal points across ministries, government, departments, and agencies. These focal points have received training to build their capacity to integrate climate change into the development planning and policymaking processes. We have completed the preparation of the climate change policy framework and will shortly be laying it in Parliament. And at that stage, I believe I showed the document. We have received Cabinet approval for the construction of 2 breakwater structures in the Long Bay area of Negril under the project to enhance the resilience of the agricultural sector and coastal areas. Through forest management plans, there has been an overall increase in forest cover equivalent to 0.41% or 1,394 hectares annually. This increase was mainly due to conversion of non-forested land into secondary forests. 40% or 441,000 hectares of the island is now classified as forest. Development orders have been produced for several parishes, and we are on target to ensure that the entire island is subject to those orders under the Town and Country Planning Act. We are also modernizing the development approval process to deal in a more efficient and timely manner with the anticipated increase in applications. Our land agencies, NLA and LAMP, will be processing, over 1,000 titles between them during this fiscal year. This year, the National Land Agency intends to prepare 300 certificates of title for allottees in land settlement schemes, while LAMP will be aiming to process for applicants. For those persons who are not able to produce any documents showing their ownership, in spite of being in possession of family land for many years, we will be establishing even more what we describe as adjudication committees that will work at the community level, deliberate on the rights and interests of applicants, and provide a written record of their decisions which can be used by landowners to support an application to register land. This will address what we call the root of title problems and reduce the length of time from 30 years to 12 years, and that is very, very significant. Quantum leap. A big announcement is that we protected purchasers and depositors in the real estate industry to the tune of over $20 billion last year. And perhaps I should have expanded. What this means is that we retrieve dollars and cents and return to purchasers when the schemes were not being run in accordance with the contract. So I don't want people to think they actually got the money back, 20 billion. And in fact, the CEO told me that in one or two, a couple instances, some have not come back to collect. But this is very, very important. This is a huge accomplishment by the Real Estate Board, and we are looking for even greater things from the board during this fiscal year. And I did mention what would have happened before I think it's 88, when the board came into existence. The purchasers would have lost their money. I noted in one of the daily newspapers, and I'll not say which one, on Tuesday this week, that a statement was made that, quote, other Caribbean islands were having a level of high-end international and estate investment far outstripping Jamaica, and that there is a concept of real estate tourism, which is what we are missing, end of quote. Since I have you all here, let me just state for the record that this statement is misleading. The fact is that we are indeed poised to take advantage of this market, as the Timeshare Vacations Act was passed this calendar year, and this has prompted significant interest in our timeshare product from large overseas organizations. What would be a better way to put it is that perhaps we have taken too long to establish the timeshare scheme. In the water portfolio, we expended just over $6 billion on water projects, which impact at least 1 million users island-wide. In the Kingston metropolitan area, we spent some $2.8 billion. In Western Jamaica, approximately $2 billion, and more than $1 billion in upgrading the water supply in our rural communities. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I will end my summary here, as I'm sure that you are very anxious to have your many questions answered. My team of experts from the agencies are here with me, and they stand ready to elaborate on any aspect of my presentation in Parliament. So don't be surprised if you don't hear from me any further. I will first ask the heads of agencies to introduce themselves, and ask that you in turn identify yourselves and the media houses which you represent before asking your questions. Thank you.
Elizabeth Stair, CEO, National Land Agency.
Mark Barnett, I'm Fernandez, Managing Director, Water Resources Outline.
Audrey Thompson. I'm Leonard Francis, Director, Spatial Planning Division at Network.
Oral Khan, Chief Technical Director.
Jeffrey Spooner, Director, Meteorological Service.
Marlon Hedrick, Real Estate Board and the Commission of Strategy Corporation.
Keith Goodison, General Manager, Central Fleet.
We are now open for questions.
And orders. Let me add, however, that I have made an important change to the Negril Development Order, which will now permit a maximum of 4 stories for buildings not exceeding a height of, and I said meters, but it should be feet.
50 feet.
50 feet, not meters. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Warren Bird from RJ.
Yeah.
On the matter of Negril, the announcement for the great water structure, they stated in their presenting incident you are continuing to engage with the Negril community. What has been the nature of those discussions? Because from past, both the residents of the community as well as the environment have been opposed to this project. So what
Who you say have opposed? The residents?
as well as
Not in totality. And who else?
as an environmental
some environmentalists. That's why I'm going to turn over to the CEO of NEPA.
I think we have to start in the context of the details of what was taken before the cabinet. And as you know, cabinet submissions are private and confidential documentation. But one proposal is a number of options were placed for decisions. And one option is that having received the cabinet's approval for the construction, we will still have a level of engagement with the stakeholders in Negril as we work along with them, because the project is to benefit the Negril community. So the intention is that we would work with them. They have a number of issues that I don't think they are objecting for just saying they are objecting. There are issues that they want attention to, in addition to the objection, traffic and noise and issues like that. So we'll be working with the stakeholders. Bear in mind that the National Works Agency, who is a project implementer, has applied for and obtained the necessary licenses and permits from the Natural Resources Conservation Authority, Beach Control Authority.
Regarding the concerns raised by the environmentalists, what are your findings and are your conclusions based on this?
Yeah, again, we have to put the objection and the concerns in context. Bear in mind that comprehensive studies were done. The design was tested by University of Delaware. We have done an environmental impact assessment, and all the stakeholders had an opportunity to comment on the findings of the EIA. We did receive comments from a consultant engaged by the Negril community, and we responded in detail, and the Director of Application Management is here, to those concerns. And we are satisfied that the technical as well as the other aesthetic issues that were raised, that they were properly considered, reviewed. We had further lengthy discussion at the level of the NRCA Beach Control Authority that had to grant approval. Remember, NEPA makes recommendation. And those issues were trashed out. The authority, all the concerns that the members of the authorities had, we responded to them, and the authority was satisfied that the issues have been resolved.
I want to ask a follow-up on the Negril issue, because what the environmentalists are saying is that NEPA is more concerned about securing the grant rather than their concerns. They raise some issues to say that NEPA is expecting 48 meters of sand to return to the shoreline, but the very same proposal that NEPA submitted to the United Nations shows that sand is very low in the area, and they made a recommendation for beach nourishment, which they believe is a better solution than the breakwater. My question is, on what basis are you going ahead and have lobbied cabinet to approve the project without putting their concerns to rest if they're still objecting to the project?
Yes, you know, there's a simple answer, but let me answer you in detail. Firstly, it is not true to say we are only interested in securing the grant. Naturally, if we, through the Planning Institute of Jamaica, because it's really the Planning Institute of Jamaica that did the project proposal, and all the agencies work with them. But if we went to an international body with a proposal, and Mr. Jeffrey Spooner probably should comment also, because he's a member of the Adaptation Fund that grant funded Jamaica. But we went to the Adaptation Fund with a proposal, and that proposal was based on heavy consultation with the Negril community and their approval, and we can make more files to you, and we can show you that a number of the persons who are now commenting, we have evidence and pictures of them in those consultation meetings, and it is the Negril community that said to us as a technical team, and the findings of Dr. Barbara Kirby, that this is what we want for Negril. So it was on that agreement that we went to the adaptation fund. Now, let me make it very clear. And we have experts in NEPA who can speak to you after about beach nourishment. We have no objection whatsoever to beach nourishment. And we have said that, the minister himself has said that. The chairman of the authority is Mr. John Jr. We have said that to the Negril community. We have no objection to beach nourishment, but where we are now, the government of Jamaica is not going to be spending money on beach nourishment for the sand to be washed away with the first weather event. So we have no objection. What we have said, you're free to apply, you're free to identify the sand for the beach nourishment. We will grant you the license once the technical documentation is correct and you meet the requirements. And we will give you permission to do beach nourishment. But strategically, the government of Jamaica is not putting sand on a beach for it to be washed away.
Could I just add, you keep referring to NEPA in your question. What we must remind also that the NRC is a competent body established by statute to ensure that whatever decisions are taken, whatever permits are given in accordance with best science. And a lot of effort was made to ensure that best science was applied to this project in terms of the expertise that were consulted and in terms of the advice that was before the NRCA. And they have a responsibility, therefore, to make the decision based on the science and based on in the best interest of the environment. They have no vested interest whatsoever, and they have to be sure that whatever they do, they are insulated from the voice of some persons who might have, other interests.
Jeff.
And just to follow up on that, as a member Thank you very much and good morning, everybody.
Because we have had some issues with that now.
To respond to that, I am confident that the engineering technologies that were in place would have ensured that the intervention that is proposed would have been sustainable to withstand major hurricane events. So the fear of washing these rocks ashore, I would think should not be there. The engineering intervention should be sufficient to withstand major hurricanes. We have one major hurdle now to overcome, and that is the procurement of the contractor. So I would suspect that would take two months. Yes. So yes, then NWA has to, and I'm speaking on behalf of NWA, has to procure the contractor now. Now that we have gotten cabinet's approval, and I suspect that will take another 2 months or so for that to be done. But let me just go back and mention something that Mr. Spooner raised earlier about the movement in the rocks. And again, directors who have the more detailed expertise can answer. But the purpose of engaging an engineering firm, which was CEAC Limited, to do the design and to then get it tested by an independent provider, which is the University of Delaware, as I mentioned. And that technical report is available, and that report shows that this design is good enough for a 100-year return storm event. And there is no, and I'm going based on the design and the science and the modeling. Remember that there was modeling done to model the design against hurricanes and weather event, and it showed quite conclusively that the hurricane would not impact on the design.
To further on that,
they are the key stakeholders in that aspect, but I don't get a sense that they're able to convince them of those sustainable benefits to be reaped from the breakwater project. Why is that so? Do you feel that their concerns are fallacious? You're not engaging them enough? Because you're still not convinced of all the arguments that are being posited here. So what's the issue really?
No, we're not convinced that their arguments are based on strong science and there's any evidence base. We are going by the research that was done and the design that was prepared and so on. I don't want to come across as that their concerns are frivolous, but their concerns, I think the other concerns they have, not about the design. I don't think they're arguing about the design. They're arguing that they don't want to break water, they want beach nourishment. They're arguing about that it's going to disrupt their business and there's going to be noise on the roads and traffic and things like that. So I don't want to come across that their concerns are frivolous. But let me say, you see, prior to this project, we had a EU Adaptation Fund project, and we did, because this is an ongoing and continuing work we are doing in the grid. And under the EU project, we had the same sort of objections. One major hotelier, and probably largest hotelier in the Caribbean, looked at what we were doing and thought it was something good, and came to us and said, NEPA, we want to work with you. And that hotelier spent $90 million of their own money, and they got a grant of 20 million from the EU fund, and they put up hard structures, put up coral covers, and I'm sure I saw a story in the newspaper, one of the newspapers yesterday, to show how well that intervention is doing. So what people have to do is cooperate with us and also come and join us and put money in these things for the protection of the grill. I don't think the constant objection to everything that is proposed in the grid is going to serve any of us well.
So you're saying it's corporate interest over national interest. That's basically what you're saying.
What?
No.
What kind of conference?
Securing tourism over the national interest.
No, I was giving an example.
No, before you answer, I'd like to know what yeah, I need to understand the question.
Because based on what he said, right?
Yeah.
He's saying that they're objecting based on the fact that they're not going to get return for the investment. I mean, they're saying tourists not going to go diving anymore.
I didn't say anything like that.
Like, you didn't say. What I'm saying is that based on what you have put on the table, I'm saying if your summary is that their concerns are just corporate interest over the national interest.
Nobody said that. That's an erroneous concept.
I didn't say that.
Maybe empty land or idle land or whatever. Minister, this adjudication committee is a serious move. And I want you to tell me what is justification? Are you legalizing people coming up with false documents and saying that, listen, I own it, Mr. Land, and I can own it because the government said it's a legal thing. Please, Minister, it's a very serious move.
All right. Well, I will come in at the bottom end. The top end, we have the Commissioner of Land, and we have the Director of Land. Yes.
But Minister, the book stopped at you now, Minister. The book stopped at your desk. I want you to go. Don't pass the cup, Minister. I beg you, please.
Pass the cup?
No, don't pass it.
All right. Answer me this question.
Yes, Minister.
How many politicians existing today have been in the business longer than me?
Minister, I'm not
so don't tell me about passing now, but I said how I'd operate here this morning. We have the experts, and I'd come back after they have spoken. Okay. I'm very proud of the adjudication committee because, well, let me just say this. The real estate law as it exists in Jamaica today is anti-poor. You spoke about squatting. One of the reasons why ordinary black Jamaican...
Capturing, not squatting. It's capturing.
Capturing and squatting. One of the reasons is because the ordinary Jamaican, based on our history, never had access to land. And access to land today is still a serious problem because of the unavoidable costs of lawyers and surveyors. And they have not been able to transfer the land they have based on possession being in there for years. You heard in my opening remarks that I said the root of title business is of utmost significance, and with the help of the adjudication committee, it can move from 30 years to 12. Now, you start to talk to ordinary Jamaica, where the in terms of surveying, you know what was their survey? The mango tree beside the guinea tree here. Point out survey. It goes nowhere. And as it exists now, they'll have to go before referees who are top lawyers, and I'm not criticizing them. It has proved not to work. And the adjudication committee has come in there now to reduce that. On the adjudication committee, you'd have a JP, an attorney, but they are from the area, so they know the people. So the applicants couldn't come and sample them. You following me?
Yes, Minister.
I will be following me step by step, but me passing off anything. Yes. Because I feel strongly about it. You start from the position. How you think a poor person can go get land? Which poor person can go get title? Eh? You know, there's the standing joke of a lawyer who for many years he was practicing law. His son became a lawyer and came in there. He went on holidays, and the estate was so long in the office that the son happily called him, "Dad, you know what happened that estate that you had? I finished it." "Boy, you're mad. That estate sent you to university, auntie. I was holding it." You drove past you.
What's making the estate duration?
Yes, it's special provision. Yeah. No, what I'm saying is that they will hold. I won't bother go down that road. Just get in your mind. That's why we say we're establishing an ownership society, but you can't establish ownership society and keep out the poor of the land, because they are not in a position to produce relevant documents. And one of the basic reasons in law, and I mean Betty and you two lawyers, what do you call it again? Real estate business must be documented. It cannot be by hearsay. Some things can get away in law by hearsay, but not the transfer of land. And the reason, the history for that too, is obvious. Because if you're coming out of a history of slavery, why slaves go and get land? No. So that's it. But over to both of you.
Good morning, everyone. The adjudication committees, they are part of the law, the Special Provisions Act, a law that was established to assist landowners in getting title. There are also regulations in place that governs the operation of the adjudication committees. So it's not just something that happens or came out of the air. There are regulations that govern the operation of the committees. And the committees are meant to assist at the community level to adjudicate on rights and interests of persons in land. It's an open forum, and as Minister indicated, there are 5 persons on the committees, including an attorney, a commissioned land surveyor, a justice of the peace, and a community person. So these persons are fully aware and know of the land situations, and it's an open forum. So if there are objections to the process, then those objections are duly noted and persons are free to seek redress in court. So it's not meant to take away anything from anyone. It's meant to simplify for the average Jamaican who may in possession of family land for years and generate land passing from hand to hand, as Minister said, generation to generation, but persons not making will. They are duly entitled to the property, don't have the document, and that document is what is needed for them to get a title. So that's the whole purpose of the adjudication committee.
And you mentioned will. One of the things I said, you can't tell them will, you know, they're about to die. Yeah, this is yours, and it besides so and so. They figure that that's a will, but a will has to be documented.
Allocate that land to these
It's not yours. Nobody
certificate of title because it is good against the world. If you have a certificate of title, it is good against the world. Once the registrar of title sign that document, it is good again. That's why you have to go through that process. And that's why when you change it, you have to be meticulously careful.
Sorry.
Like you.
It's all right, Minister.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The question you're asking has to do with what it is that, as a country, we will be proposing as our commitment to the reduction of greenhouse gases. And this is something that all countries, as you're aware, are expected to determine. Now, in our case, we want to set a target, but that has to be determined after we have done the necessary modeling, the necessary projection. As a country, we are targeting a certain level of growth. We are targeting the use of a mix of energy sources, and these all contribute to greenhouse gas emission. So we need to do an assessment as to what can we reasonably achieve, bearing in mind the level of economic activity as a country we want to accomplish. So at the moment, we have gotten support from the USA to have specialists, modeling specialists, assist us in helping to look at their scenarios. So, for example, if we were to look at reducing our emission by a certain level, what would be the implication for economic activities? Would that mean that we'll have to cut back on certain level of production if we were to do that? And so these scenarios are being developed, and we are hoping to get the result of this exercise within the next 2 or 3 months, so that will now help us to determine what levels we can set as it relates to our greenhouse gas reduction as a country. So, in a nutshell, we are not able to say yet, but we are definitely seeking to set a target that is ambitious, a target that reflects our commitment to greenhouse gas reduction, but at the same time a target that will take into consideration our level of economic activity and growth that we want to accomplish over the next 20, 30 years.
Something has started in that regard in terms of energy. I did listen to the Minister here, renewable energy.
Not at all. In fact, we are way ahead of most countries. There are just a few countries in the world, of the 192 countries, a few of them that have already completed. And so we are in good stead in terms of our work. And already we have some inclination, because we are thinking along the line of increasing the level of renewable energy that we will use in our energy production mix. But the exact figure will be determined by June, we are expecting. We are looking at somewhere between 20% or 30% of our energy coming from renewable sources, and that will reflect a certain level of greenhouse gas emission. But the specifics will be determined as soon as we have gotten the actual projection and models results from the experts who are assisting us.
Is this in sync with the Kyoto Convention? The Kyoto Convention?
It is.
Okay. Are we going to include carbon trading as one of the... Is that in the mix for us?
No, what is setting is a target, the level of greenhouse gas reduction.
I know.
So that's a related area in terms of what facilities are we going to be putting in place to encourage the reduction in greenhouse gas emission. Carbon trading is, yes, one of the areas that we will be looking at in terms of creating facilities to encourage trading in that area.
Price is low. Now carbon trading, yeah, is an option, but right now the price is low. It's not as attractive as...
The air quality testing that was done post-River
You can expect the report sometime by this weekend. Report is completed. I'm now reviewing the report.
This weekend.
Yes.
Saturday, Sunday.
Tomorrow. Late tomorrow.
Minister, in your presentation yesterday, you said that rainfall.
But for there is climate change, not climate control. I can't really prevent the drought. The impact, yeah. Yes, I said something yesterday, but again, Mr. Spooner here who can. What I am understanding from Mr. Spooner, the Met Office, is that the projections up until September this year would be better than last year. Although, simultaneously, we're seeing, I saw this world body saying that this March was worse than last March, and last March was the worst in history. But I think Mr. Spooner is telling me that this March in Jamaica is not necessarily worse than last March. No. What we're doing in terms of preparation for drought is really this whole business of rainwater harvesting. And yes, and in Jamaica we have about 800 and odd tanks. I don't know what part of rural Jamaica you're from, if in fact you're from rural Jamaica, but you know these barbecue tanks, big barbecue, that they really can hold a whole lot of water, but they have been left over the last couple of years to Mother Nature and fallen into a state of disrepute. Now we are spending millions of dollars, and Mr. Thompson is here from Rural Water, to fix. So far with that program we've gone through at 95 catchment tanks, and we are moving along to deal with as many as possible. So that is one positive thing, because I keep saying it. I've been to community meetings where I spoke about it, and a gentleman got up and he said, "Minister, I have 7 daughters. All of them now went to tertiary institution, and it was all because of one tank that I had." But we have become, and I'm not, how should I put it? I'm not trying to be critical, but if you go into rural Jamaica today, the tanks are in the yards and they just leave it. And the next thing is we want justice, because everybody, understandably, everybody would like to have pipe portable water. And we're moving for that. And strange as it might sound, in Jamaica we have about 75% mark of pipe portable water. But the problem is in rural Jamaica, and not so much in rural Jamaica, but in hilly Jamaica, because and coming right back, you see the whole ministry is to intertwine. The more oil you use, because the Water Commission, the biggest customer of the JPSCO is the Water Commission. And one of the main reasons why that happened is that when the price of oil was like $10 a barrel, it was cheap to produce the water for the pumping and the energy and the electricity used. But that has changed dramatically, because you know where the price of oil is now. And the problem is that with the NWC is not able to increase the rate. So those who would like to have more water in rural Jamaica, we are not able to do it, because and when the OUR, sorry to be going so fast, when the NWC went to the OUR last year and said, look, let us differentiate the rates, we are saying the people in Mandeville, they should be paying a higher rate than the people where the water is gravity fed, because the costs are different.
True.
But they turn it down. And for you now, to pump water up into certain areas of Jamaica, the hilly areas, it's not economically feasible. But it's not, you can't sell that to Jamaicans so easily. But we are trying, and we are saying in those areas, we must build the tanks so that the people can harvest the rainwater and use it, you know, in a responsible way. But we have, Mark, I don't know if you want to actually. Okay, yes. In the meantime, the permanent secretary is reminding me that we're going to be spending quite some money on the trucking of water. Because your whole question was about the drought, when the drought brings that on. And it is bad in some areas. And where it's even worse is when they used to have water, they have the pipe, but it's the air going through the pipe because the source has dried up. Climate change is proving that. I never know that Hope River. Last year, remember what happened, Mona? Hope River and Yalas.
True.
Eh? And it means that if you have that kind of drought again, it's going to dry up because you don't have an immediate source.
True.
Mark you. Luckily, Basil tells us, Mr. Fernandez, I refer to him as the professor, the great Mr. Fernandez. He says we have enough water. But another problem again is where we have the water, the people choose not to live. And so it is expensive to take the water to them.
Minister,
That's a mouthful, but I'm sorry.
I don't want to.
No, 1 second. Yes, a follow-up question from Mr. Spooner.
Because Minister said that Mr. Spooner was going to make a comment on the very same question I asked him. So I was just...
Yeah. Sir Spooner.
Yes, I would just like him to ask the question. Yeah, man.
The recurrence of...
To prevent the recurrence of drought?
Yeah.
No, we cannot prevent the recurrence of
mitigate
drought.
against the impact that the drought can have, like the one last year. Because even it was suggested that the drought affected our economic growth last year.
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
So something like that.
And the minister has elaborated to quite a large extent on the plans, the mitigation actions, the rainwater harvesting in particular, the rehabilitation of the catchment tanks, and so on. Trucking of water are some of the measures that are in place. The projection for this year is that the drought would not be as severe as it was last year.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, to the end of March, just 3 parishes experienced varying levels of drought: St. Thomas, Clarendon, Kingston, and St. Andrew. And the projection for the next 6 months is for, and you have said it, near normal to above normal rainfall to occur. So that we are not expecting the drought to be as severe as it was last year. However, and that is what the enhancing the ability to project out to 6 months has actually resulted in the agencies, the sector, being able to plan in advance. And as a result, these measures are in place. These measures have been put in place to mitigate against the impacts of drought. And we will continue on a monthly basis to have this 6 months projection so the planners can plan in advance, pre-adventure. There is reduction in the rainfall and the resulting drought. I probably might just want to indicate that especially the period January through to April is the dry period, right? So yes, we'll be getting reduced rainfall, but not necessarily a drought. The drought is defined, and the meteorological drought is defined as the area getting 60% or less of the normal rainfall over 8 consecutive weeks period, right? So this period is the dry period. and it's not necessarily a drought. Right?
But did you hear the word that Mr. Spooner used?
Have to utilize this type of nomenclature. In that
There is no certainty.
there is no certainty, and the models are here to guide us and help us on the way.
No certainty.
Also, just reminded that I should mention the temperatures. Last year was one of the hottest year on record, and the temperatures in Jamaica is also increasing as the global average temperature is increasing, and this is expected based on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change projection on the climate change scenario. Increasing temperatures are expected as well, both increasing air temperature and sea surface temperature. The increase in air temperature will have an implication on, of course, relative humidity, soil moisture, and all sectors, but more so the agricultural sector. And again, the Meteorological Service is working in conjunction with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fishery, the RADA division there, to work with the farmers in producing these farmers bulletin, which again are the 3 to 6 months projection for rainfall, for drought, and we're expanding it this year to include soil moisture, to include humidity, so that at least the farmers again will have 3 to 6 months lead time in planning. We also have a product available where you, wherever you are in Jamaica, are able to get up to 5 days forecast on your smartphone. This again, the farmers, we have been having quite a number of farmers forum to train both the farmers and the extension officers on the use of these meteorological applications. And we just don't use a top-down approach. We meet with them, we have consultations with them, and they tell us what they want, how they want it, the frequency with which they want it. And we are now rolling out this year additional products to them that will help them to plan their activities in a sustainable way.
Mitigating the impacts of drought is not only, the onus cannot only be on the government and the Ministry of Water, Land, Environment and Climate Change. Each person, or the NWC as my good friend is saying, each person has a role to play, and one aspect of mitigating the impacts of drought is conservation, and the use of water is very important. As I always say, and I have coined it, that we need to get more crop per drop in agriculture. We need to use more efficiently the water to produce the same or more crops in terms of irrigation efficiency. In-house uses, we need to look at how we can conserve, and we have to go back to looking at the installation of conservation devices within households to ensure that we reduce the volume of water that we use. It's not, we can't continue to just use water and expect you're going to get more water. Water is a finite resource, and therefore it's not going to be able to go to everybody. And we're expecting a significant growth in population all over the world. So you making new water is the same water that's going through the cycle and coming back to you. So we have got to look at how we can conserve both in the homes and on the farms and in our uses all across the island to assist in mitigating the impacts of the drought.
Mr. Hernandez, the desilting of the Hermitage Dam, sir.
That Mr. Barney can speak to that.
Yeah, because we have heard about the desilting of the Hermitage Dam.
He'll speak to that, but you had another question.
No, Kimon had a question for you.
Well, I'm guessing several people can answer, and it's more of a comment. I wanted to ask really, how many of you as policymakers, members of government do conservation, use these same conservation strategies at home that you're
My hand is
suggesting
up, you know, looking here.
I do.
rainwater harvesting.
I do.
I am guttering you.
Yes.
You're guttering?
Yes.
Yeah. I got
And
to
I'm
start.
asking because there's clearly a disconnect.
You could make a tour to some of us.
All the offices, at the offices, for instance, we have changed out all of our toilets to low flush toilets and things, and we have aerators and systems. At home, I have the same thing. We have put in low flush toilets and we have put on aerators and showers to give you a good pressure head and things. You can come and look at the toilets, yes. Yes, you can come and see. But the point is, we have all got to contribute and things like that. So it's the onus on everybody.
But you're correct, you're correct.
Also, where are we with using the wastewater as treated effluent for irrigation?
It's the good son.
That's an active part of the plan that we have with the sugar factories, for example. We've been in negotiation and discussion down more on sugar factory, for example, to reduce the water from salt area.
That the greatest hindrance to the use of treated effluent is not the water, you know, it's the culture we have in this country. People say because it's treated effluent, it can't be used. That is what we have. We have to overcome this culture. And the farmers have that you can't use treated effluent. It's being used across the world. And right now, a lot of the hotels on the North Coast have as a condition, and Mr. Knight can tell you, we have placed as a condition on granting permits, that they must reuse the effluent for green areas. And a lot of the hotels that go into the Rose Hall sewage system, all of that treated effluent goes to the golf courses and other places. Bahia Principe, all that goes into irrigation of green areas. And there are several other hotels that are recycling and using that water. What we are aiming for in all of the major hotels is a zero discharge to the environment, which will improve the environment and also make use of a valuable resource that we can utilize for irrigation purposes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Barnett, I've been wanting to ask this question, and I'm not going to use the whole question of the desilting of the Hermitage Dam. It makes no sense if you're collecting 1 million gallons and 60% of it is silted up, and only 40% of it, and as Mr. Hernandez indicated a while ago, water is not a finite product.
It's a finite product.
It's a finite product. Oh, why? Educating me there is a finite product. NWC doing about this. As a contract been signed, what's been happening? Clear announcements.
Good morning again, everyone. I see you like the details as much as possible. First, let me just put it in this context. The nature in which you ask the question suggests that desilting the Hermitage Dam will solve Kingston and St. Andrews water situation during the dry months that we experience. And for NWC, we calculate our dry months from December onto April. So just to clear the here, desilting the Hermitage will not in itself solve all the Kingston and St. Andrew water supply problem during the dry period. So I just want to rest that, put that on the table. However, we have initiated a program to look at desilting, or let's say removing most of what washed down in the Hermitage. And I just want to, you know, if you will permit me, and the minister know that I like to have a long run up in terms of, you know, giving things, put things in context. Over the years, and the Hermitage is over 78 years age, and what you find is, depending and based on what the practices are further on the slopes, let's say the watersheds, it has an impact on what happens at the catchment area itself, or let's say at the dam. And what you find is, if you look at what the exact geographic area that the hermitage would have covered in the earlier years to what it now expand to. It's a little bit wider. However, there is some amount of silt. So desilting, while it will solve an immediate problem, if there is not an intervention further in the watershed to look at all the stakeholder activities, then we will have the same problem a couple of years down the road. And again, you will come and ask the same question, when are we desilting Hermitage again? So the overall look will be to look at the different tributaries that contribute to the Hermitage. We have to look at all of those activities that contribute into that. And what we're endeavoring to do at NWC, rather than just rush to desilt, is to see what other activities that need to be done to complement the construction activities, as we call it, so that when we do finally do the physical work, we would have been able to safeguard or to put preventative measures further upstream so that the same thing does not reoccur in short order. So, having said that, we don't have a contract now signed to have the physical work happening. I will put that on the table. What we are now endeavoring to do is to conduct a comprehensive assessment, including the physical infrastructure of the dam. And again, I wish to highlight that in working on an infrastructure that is almost, or let's say, close to 75 years in its existence, it's not to say you're just going in there with equipment to remove sand without carefully understanding the dam structure itself. You would know, or you would be aware that over the years we have had a few earthquakes, a few tremors. All of those things has to be taken into consideration. And our initial phase right now is to do the comprehensive assessment, and that will inform, one, how we do the work, two, how we discharge the silt, because at the same time NEPA will have to be involved on that because something has to be disposed, and at the same time look and see what needs to be done further up in the watershed. So that's where we are now.
So what's the timetable?
Are you saying timetable for what? For I want to for the geotechnical. We expect that comprehensive study will be completed within a year. Yeah.
A question, Mr. Fernandez.
The water from my washing machine, my kitchen. Water along. Yes. Yeah. So I do that. That tank on the house. How you explain to me that I pay the same amount of money for water coming into my house, that the water go?
I know that's where this was going.
The same amount of money you pay for water coming to your house is the same amount of money that charge you for it out back?
That's for the sewage.
Yes.
But
Yes.
Look here. You're charging. Some go to storage. I'm just explaining to you that water, my plant. So not the same amount that come in, that go.
No,
So explain that to me. And I think it's highway around.
I think Mr. Barney can claim, but it's a percentage you pay. You don't pay the 100% anymore.
No, but it will come to 250, up here 250.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
No.
I'll bet you $10,000 now in now.
I'll bet more.
Mr. Barney, you bet more money, Warren.
All right, just to clarify.
I used to water my things, they don't go back.
Just to clarify the whole issue of how the charges relating to your bill are constructed. We, for those who have meters, and your consumption is based on your monthly meter reading, you have a particular rate for the water component that is charged. With respect to the sewage, one of the easiest way and we within NWC would have done the assessment and recognized that this is more to the benefit of the consumer rather than price the storage infrastructure and O&M costs independently, which would have resulted in a higher cost to the consumer. What is done is a percentage of the volume of the water that you consume. And in this case, on the water bill, it is 92%. It is not 100%. While you may consider 8% not very significant, in the scheme of things, depending on what your usage is, it still worked out to be a reasonable amount. So it is 92% of your water consumption charges that is related to your surge charge.
But you know how much go out. You can't know how much go out. You can know how much come in, but you can't know how much go out.
And that is what I said. For each, if you were supposed to... No, it's not a hard question. It's not a hard question. No. I have to try to make sure that I simplify the response so that at least, you know, you...
What the percentage might
yeah.
be? I think it is too high.
Okay.
The water going out. That's a clean water coming in. It's dirty water going out. So you should look at that. Because I use my water that is supposed to go to water my lawn and milk and things around the body. So
So you save money.
Eh?
So you
I
save.
don't save any money because
Yes,
it's the same
you
percentage.
save because if you were using
that component is being implemented by the Ministry of Local Government, but there are a number of advertisements that are now running that carry the precise locations. You know, Jerome? Is it Jerome? He went outside.
NSWNA is one of them.
Yes, well, yes, Solid Waste Authority on the local government. They're the ones implementing that component of the project.
That's a drop-off.
And they have several drop-off points. One is somewhere, I think, in the Patrick City area, but I cannot give you the precise location. We'll get that information for you.
So would you be able to speak to the level of activity? Like, are people using them? Are those kinds of waste being deposited and what regularly?
No, I cannot comment on that, no, either. The project was just launched in March, so it's getting on the way right now. So it's sensitization is going on right now, so it's a bit early in the process. But we will get information for you on that.
And it's a great move. I recommend that move. Excellent move.
Thank you.
Okay, my sorry. Final question is for you, Mr. Knight, and it relates to the grill, but not the breakwaters. It said in this report, the minister's report, that the setback is 150 feet.
Yeah.
But I've seen properties that have gone beyond that. I'd like to know what kind of sanctions have you brought to bear on them? Yeah. Yes, they've gone closer to
answers some of the issues we are placing on the table. And that is why, Minister, you will look at Minister's statement and you will see that Minister was definitive in that the setback remains at 150 feet except in exceptional circumstances. If you go to Negril now, buildings that were not at the high water mark are now in the water mark. There are a number of buildings now at certain times because of the major challenge we have, and that is why you said you're not talking about breakwater. That is why we want to install the breakwater to help to prevent us losing all the sun. And you can have the detailed discussion with Anthony Mackenzie and his team. So I don't know if it is going to be reasonable to sanction a person who has a title, who has a surveyor's diagram that show you that his building was at this point. Right? And this is what he has his title for. But because of the weather and the phenomenon that we are with climate change and erosion, the building is now closer.
If you understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah, and these are the difficulties that we experience. And I'm sure Director Ainsley Henry, you can get some details from him application. I know we have gone to the authority before, the NRC and the Beach Control Authority, to say, here is the historical context. This building was not at the high water mark 5 years ago. Because people have to renew their beach licenses, do you also now require them to get a beach license because they're at the high water mark? So these are the things that we are grappling with because of the phenomenon that is Negril. And I want to make the point that it is not only Negril that we are seeing these issues. We are seeing it in St. Elizabeth. Minister has quite a bit of correspondences from members of parliament in eastern Jamaica, where the sea is coming closer and closer to land, and it is going to require extensive coastal works to prevent the sea from coming further inland. So this is where we are now. Update the media. As you are aware, we did serve an enforcement notice on the Commissioner of Lands and the Ministry of Agriculture, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture. We have had a response. We have had a detailed presentation. Now when I say a detailed submission from the Permanent Secretary, which would include the comments from the Commissioner of Lands. We are now reviewing that to see if it complies with what the terms of the enforcement notice. Naturally, the cleanup is not going to be done overnight, and the installation of the sanitary convenience will not be done overnight. So they have responded to those things. But we have spoken to our partners on the Keys, the Nature Conservancy, as well as the JDF outposts, and Andrea Donaldson did, the manager ecosystems. We are advised that the solid waste, cleaning has taken place. The Permanent Secretary is proposing a modality of dealing with it. So when the review is complete, we'll let you know where we are.
Thank you. Minister, thank you.
Colonel would like to address the start.
Just getting the answers you asked for. There are 3 collection points right now. One is at the NSWMA office, King Street in Spanish Town. Second one is at the Dermason Plaza in Independence City. Yes. And the third one is at the NSWMA head office on Halfway Tree Road. So those 3 collection points are now operational. And persons can take their electronic waste items to those locations and deposit them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? There are no further questions. We'd like to thank you very much, members of the press, for coming out this morning. Please take note of the persons who are our heads of agencies. So if you have further questions, you can call them, or those who need a one-on-one. They're all here. Have a great afternoon. Thank you, heads of agencies. Thank you, directors. Thank you, Minister. Yes.